Hello! Have I got a full-on video today? The company Let's Resin sent me this huge box in the mail and I was going to open it on camera, but as we see, Australian Customs had a little unboxing of their own. And though they repacked it all, the polystyrene inside is just absolutely shredded. There were little balls of it everywhere when I opened the box, so I've actually pulled everything out, but I just thought I'd show you the mess that's left inside. That would have just gone all over my desk. So I've cleaned everything up, and I'm going to show you everything that Let's Resin sent me. Lots of resin products for me to try out in this video today. Let's get rid of this box, and let's get into the video. First up, we have a resin kit with various molds, and this is a beginner set, which I really need because I have done resin a few times, but I'm still very much a novice. And note there is an expiry date at the end of this year. That is for the epoxy resin, which is what comes in this box. It's not UV resin. I'll get back to explaining that a bit more in a while, but first up we have a little bag of pipettes. I'm not entirely sure what these are meant for in resin. Is it so you can drop dye in? I have no idea. I didn't really end up using them that much, but they're always super handy in the studio. There's also a bunch of cups and stirring sticks, because epoxy resin has to be mixed together from two different parts. I was quite surprised with how many things were packed just into this one box. Let's Resin have provided a lot of materials to get you started if you have absolutely nothing to begin with. And this was a good beginner kit just to get some of the equipment. There's also some rubber gloves stuck in there. Next up is the resin itself in 2 bottles. And I'll just get this bag open. A lot of plastic, unfortunately. That's the only downfall that I can really see from this set. But we have epoxy resin A and B. 500ml total and 250ml in each of the bottles. It looks super clear, and I had high hopes that it was going to be nice and clear once it had mixed and dried together. Next up are some molds, so that once you've mixed the resin you've got something to pour it into, and there is a sphere, a diamond, and a cube in this particular box. So the sphere comes in 2 parts, and I did not actually end up using this particular one because you'll see a bit later that I ended up with a whole bunch of different molds and I had to cherry pick which ones I was going to use. I'll just pull these other ones out of the bag. There's the large cube mold and also a pyramid mold as well. I did end up using that one, you'll see a bit later. The silicone molds themselves are nice and thick and sturdy and can be reused multiple times, which is great. They also had some little decorative pieces to put inside the molds. Some dried flowers. How these got through customs I don't know, because I think they are actually real flowers. Oops. And then we have some glitter and other sparkly bits and pieces here. Oh, I love glittery things. I'm really excited to use these. Down the bottom is also a set of instructions, which I may or may not have properly read, because I was so impatient to get into making all of these things. I'm really pleased to see they have extensive safety instructions on the manual as well, because you do have to take care with resin. There are some of their other kits that they have, and also some frequently asked questions and troubleshooting, which I'll be getting to because I made quite a few mistakes. But just this box alone had heaps of stuff, and I would have been quite set if I'd have just had that one single box. But no, they sent me loads of other stuff, and I'm definitely set for resin products for a while. So this box comes with a whole bunch of different dyes, and these also have an expiry date of next year. I'm not sure if I'm going to use these up in time because there is a lot of dye in here in lots of different colours. These dyes are designed specifically for epoxy resin and won't work with UV resin, but here's a lovely rainbow of colours including white and black. They look so pretty all together, and it was very hard to choose which colours to use in some of my projects. I did not use them all. But here are some instructions on the back, as it says only for epoxy resin, and I will be linking Let's Resin in the description below so you can check them out for yourself. They also sent me these chameleon flakes, intense colour shift, and these are in tiny little pots. It also comes with a makeup brush, which is used for dusting them onto things. And spoiler alert, I didn't do very well with these particular pigments, but I'll pull them out and show you them because they are absolutely beautiful. Look at that gorgeous chameleon colour in a range of spectrum colours, violets, blues, greens, and a bit of pink in there as well. They're so pretty. I can see me using these for other projects as well. They're just so lovely, and I'm really happy they sent these to me. Along with the ½ litre of epoxy resin that was in the beginner's box, here's another box of resin as well in the same size, but it also comes with lots of little things, a couple of silicone cups, and these are so super useful for measuring resin because you can actually clean them out again afterwards. A load more of mixing sticks and pipettes, some plastic disposable gloves, and another 2 bottles of resin A and B, both 250 mils, so another ½ litre of resin there once you mix it all together. I actually did end up using quite a lot of resin, so I'm glad they sent me some extra boxes. This has an expiry date as well. So if you do buy resin, be sure to use it pretty quickly because it doesn't last and it will start to break down. But they didn't just send me 1 box of resin. No, we have another box here and another box. So I have, I think, 2 litres of resin in total, and you can see all of them expire at the end of this year, so I'm going to have to use all of this resin at some point. But we're not done yet. Let's Resin has also sent me some different molds to try out. They were all wrapped in these plastic bags, so I ended up actually pulling everything out, and I'll show you them once I've unwrapped them. If you have trypophobia or fear of small holes, look away now. These 2 are kind of creepy. They are meant to be crystal molds, like those amethyst gems that you sometimes see. They look pretty complicated to me, and I wasn't wrong there. Okay, you can look back now. The next mold is a little mushroom pot, and this is so cute. I knew I was going to have to put this one together today. It comes in 2 pieces, and it is so much more complicated than I was expecting. Are you going to see how much fun I had with this one? But I'll move on to the next set of molds. These ones are tea light candles, and there are 3 of them. This one's pretty huge, and then there's 2 smaller, rounder ones. Unfortunately, the one I tried to make with the tea light mold did not work out, so I think I'm going to have to try using these ones again in a future video. And last up are these ones, probably my favourites. They are little flower and rose molds. I was so excited about these. I just love flowers, and I thought I could make something pretty with some of these ones. They're all different sizes. There's some really large ones and then some shallower molds as well. So here's everything that came in that big cardboard box. There's so much stuff here to play with. I was so overwhelmed, I didn't know where to start first. There's much more than I can fit into one video, so I started with the beginner set and went from there basically. I also bought a couple of silicone mats off Amazon because I knew I was going to make a horrible mess. It's really important to wear a mask or ventilator of some kind, and also I recommend wearing some protective eyewear as well. Resin can create a lot of skin and eye irritation. Also cover your hands with gloves too. Safety first when using epoxy or UV resin. Of course, the strap on my ventilator mask decided to break, so I'm using this little mask I also had. It's a P2 and will block out fumes. I'm so glamorous in all of my protective gear. But safety over beauty. So let's get going with it, and I have sped all of this up because it took me so long. My first task is to get this resin ready by pouring equal amounts in these 2 measuring cups. The hard plastic cups which came in the beginner set are not as good as the soft squishy silicone cups that come in the other boxes. And really I could have just poured both of these into the same cup because they had measurements on the side, and I could have just poured in 50 ml and then another 50 ml on top. It's 100 ml total in 1 cup. So I've poured B into A, and I'm using one of these mixing sticks to scrape out as much as possible, which is why I'm suggesting just pour everything into the 1 cup, because I am losing some of it into this, and then it makes the measurements not quite 1-to-1. And that can be a real issue because then the epoxy won't set properly. The resin needs to be mixed thoroughly for about 4 minutes, and I didn't mix all of mine for long enough, so I will have some disasters later on in the video, but I think this first lot was okay. I poured some into the little cups because I want to mix in some dye. I'm so glad I bought those silicone mats because I spilled it everywhere. You will notice I'm only wearing 1 glove, and that's because I had to use my right hand to turn the camera on and off, and I could not do it with the glove on. So that's the only reason why I don't have gloves on both hands. Otherwise, I highly recommend wearing gloves because when resin gets on your skin, it does not come off. It is so incredibly sticky. If you do get it on yourself, use a bit of concentrated washing up liquid and water just to soap it up, and it will eventually come off. You can also use olive oil or orange oil, any kind of food oil, something that's not going to damage your skin. Do not use solvents to remove it though, because that will make it worse. I really wanted to put this mushroom together, so I thought I'd start out with it, and I just made an absolute mess of this immediately. I was trying to put the white in so that it would dry and make white dots, you know, so I could get a classic red and white mushroom happening, but unfortunately the white resin just ran immediately to the base of the mold, and you can tell from this that I had no idea what I was doing, so I just put that over to one side while I thought about it. And I'm pouring the rest of the white resin into one of those crystal molds, and I just realised I'm showing the holes again in this one, and I'll be using the other crystal mold again soon too. But once I'd poured the white in, I thought I'd add in some little shiny bits and see what I could come up with using the white and also some silvery pieces here. And I was just trying to figure out what to do as I went along, because I really am not very experienced with resin. I don't know exactly what I'm doing. I was just kind of chucking stuff in and hoping that I would end up with a finished product at the end. I put in some of the shiny blue as well. Oh, and some glitter too, because glitter always looks good in resin. I did try to use one of the pipettes, but it liked to stick to that more than the mold, so I gave up on that after a while. I'm now using the large crystal mold, and I decided to try and put in some of those chameleon flakes, which went super staticky and were sticking to everything but where I wanted them to go. I had taken my glove off at some point and I was trying to get it back on. It's almost impossible once you've taken it off. But I'm not entirely sure how to use these chameleon flakes, if you're supposed to brush it onto the mold first and then pour resin, or mix it into the resin first, which is what I did here, but it just kind of broke up into little clumps and you can see it's not looking very good. I think I was starting to freak out at this point that I wasn't going to have much of a video and that all of my experiments were going to be a total fail. But I kept persevering, and I did actually learn a lot from my experiments during this video. So as I go through it, I did make quite a lot of improvements, which is really good. But for this one, I was just chucking in different shiny bits to try and make it look prettier. And then I poured resin over the whole lot, letting the glitter and flakes kind of just go wherever they wanted to. And once I'd finished filling the large one, I moved back to the smaller one and filled that up as well. So this one's got glitter and white resin in there as well as the clear resin. This epoxy resin takes about a day to dry, and I was just banging it to get rid of any air bubbles inside. Next up is back to this mushroom. I decided, rather than trying to fix it, that I would mix up some red dye first, and I'm using a pin to break that seal. Once I had stirred it into some of the resin, I was just going to pour it straight on top of the white resin there. That white is still wet. It does take a few hours for it to really start setting or curing, so it gives plenty of time to actually put these things together and not be panicking that one part is drying before you want it to. The white gently mixed in with the red and created quite a marbling effect. We'll see this later once the whole thing has dried. It's actually really neat how this one turned out. I then just poured in clear resin over the top of it, and I set it aside to set, so we'll see how that one turns out at the end of the video, along with all of the others. I've mixed up a fresh batch of resin, and now I'm adding in some blue dye. Of course, this one was jammed too. That pin came in really handy for unblocking the nozzles, although this one took me a few goes to really get it to start flowing. The actual resin dyes themselves are really high quality though, and they had lovely bright colours. How bright and saturated just depends on how much you put into the resin. I didn't put as much as I could have maybe, but I do like this lovely light blue colour it made. I poured some into the pyramid and then the remainder into this diamond one, just starting off with a bit of clear resin at the bottom first. For this one I just thought I'd mix a bunch of different things together and see what would happen. So I've got a bit of blue dye, I've also got some of these shiny bits of plastic which I put in, and I'm trying some of the blue-green chameleon powder, but you can see how it's sticking to the outside of the mold, and that's just static, pulling the flakes to places where I really didn't want them to be. That's so annoying. Like I said, I didn't have much luck with the chameleon flakes, but the glitter was really good and that was much easier to pour in. That didn't static to anything. It would not scrape off that mold. It's still stuck on there days later. But I just filled the rest of it up with clear resin, and I'll set this to one side once I've added in a few more shiny things. This one's actually come out quite well, as we'll see a bit later in the video. Stick around to the end so you can see all of my finished products. Some are much better than others. You could probably see how much resin is on the table there. I am so glad I bought those silicone mats and put them down because it's really easy to peel the resin off once it's dried off the silicone mats, much easier than trying to get it off my table. I had some red resin left, so I mixed up a little bit more and I just had to make a red rose. That's a gorgeously vibrant red too. And why not add some red glitter into it as well, just to make it extra sparkly. So once I'd mixed up this amount, I gently poured it into the base of the mold. I didn't want the entire thing to be red. I thought that would just be too much. I really just want what will be the top of the rose to be red and then the rest of it will be clear. So I gently poured in the red resin here and then I let this actually fully set overnight before I did anything else to the mold. Because I knew if I poured the clear resin in straight away it would mix too much and the whole thing would go red. I've got another one here. This is the square cube mold. And I'm using up the last of the resin that I had in this particular mix. I wasn't really sure what I was going to do, but I decided in the end to add one of these flowers into the center of it. And this is another one that I did in layers. So I put the flower here and then I set everything on another silicone mat to dry overnight. I'll come back to these tomorrow. You can see how that white and red in the mushroom has split out. It looks really neat. And then I've got some partial pours in some of these other molds. So let's let 24 hours pass and I'll come back on the second day with some more resin pouring fun. The following day, once everything had set, it was time to continue with these projects. I'm starting off by filling that rose with clear resin so it can set over the top of the red before I unmold the whole thing. And then I'm fully encasing that flower in the resin, though I decided not to fill the entire cube up. I poured a layer of clear into the pyramid and then the rest of it onto the mushroom because it wasn't quite filled yet. And then I had to mix up another batch because I'd run out of resin again. During this video, I ended up using all of the resin that came in the beginner set, so that is about 500 mils all mixed together. And then I started in on 2 of the other bottles. I think I got about halfway through those before I finished up with everything. So I did use quite a lot, but I still have 2 full boxes of resin to use up and some partial bottles as well. The quality of all of the products that Let's Resin sent to me is excellent. The resin itself is really clear and it had minimal bubbles. The silicone molds are really sturdy and can be used many times over. The dyes and glitters were great too. I definitely struggled the most with the chameleon glitter because I just didn't really know how to use it. I was trying to push it onto the inside of the mold and then I'll see how it goes with pouring the resin. But I made a huge mistake here. I'm putting it on the wrong side of the resin mold here. This is supposed to be the base for the mushroom, but I've only got the stupid thing upside down and I'm putting the glitter on the wrong side. I didn't even realize this until many hours later when it occurred to me I had used the mold upside down. I really don't know how I managed to do that. That's so embarrassing, but I thought I would show you one of my mistakes because it is pretty funny. And this is how not to do resin stuff. Honestly, I see a lot of resin pouring videos and they make it look so easy, but it's actually surprisingly difficult and I find it quite a struggle to get anything good out of resin and molds. So if you're watching this in the hopes that I was going to teach you something, I do apologize. But maybe we can all learn from my mistakes. It was going so well here too. I was pouring in the glitter and it was looking really pretty, but you'll see what happens when I mold it in a moment, because after a day it looks alright at this angle, but when I turn it around it's gone all cloudy, and that's because I used the wrong side of the silicone mold. So it has gone opaque instead of nice and shiny, because the mold side I used is opaque. I'm so silly. The resin's supposed to go inside here, so I'm going to do it again properly. Going into the 3rd day, and I'm just going to finish off all of the projects today because I was running out of time and I just needed everything to set, and I wanted to give myself plenty of time to actually be able to edit the video. So I mixed up a bunch of gold glitter into this resin. That's from my own stash there, and I'm just pouring this last layer into the pyramid shaped one because I thought it would look nice with a gold base to it. And now I'm filling up the mushroom mold the correct side this time. And for a while there I thought it was only supposed to go around the edges and not over the top of it, But then I remembered I'm looking at it upside down, so that's actually meant to be the base of the mushroom, and yes, it's meant to be enclosed. So I just ended up pouring the whole lot over there, and I decided for this one just to go really simple and just pour in plain clear resin for the base of the mushroom. I don't know why this one was so complicated. It's really simple now that I've actually worked it out, but I could not get it. And last up, I wanted to do one more flower mold, just using glitter because that seems to be my favourite thing to put in resin. I mixed up a few different colours, mostly pinks and purples with a bit of gold, and I'm just going to pour this straight into the rose mould and hope that it comes out nicely at the other end. It does seem to work better mixing the glitter into the resin first, and then I just topped it up with some clear resin. So this is day 4, it has actually set, and I'm just going to show you one unmolding. I did actually unmold the rest of them off camera because it took ages for some of them, but the rose one was really easy to pull out, and the silicone went back into shape once I had removed it from the resin itself. You just have to pop it back. There we go. But look at that, that's so cute. And now I'm going to show you all of the finished projects that I made in this video. Starting with this large crystal, this one did not set very well. I don't think I'd mixed the resin up enough, and there is one area where it's super sticky, so this didn't work out very well overall, and I'm not so keen on the flakes and glitter inside. I think it would have been better with different coloured dyes. But it came out quite well in the shape. I'm just going to have to leave it to sit for quite a long time, I think, for it to maybe actually fully set. Here is the smaller crystal I made with white resin mixed in with the clear and a bit of glitter. This one turned out a lot better, although once again I should have put the coloured dyes into it. That would have looked much nicer. So I guess that's something to revisit maybe in a future video or just in my own time. But moving on to some more successful ones, I love this flower embedded in the resin. You can see there are a few flaws, and I don't think I mixed the resin for long enough. You can also see a line where the 2 different levels of resin pours are, so it's not exactly perfect, but I do like it and it looks pretty cool against black as well. So I'm calling this one a success even though it's not totally perfect, but I definitely want to stick more flowers into resin, maybe put a whole bunch together. Let's move on to the next one. This is the blue diamond I made, and I really like how this turned out. It has a mix of blue dye and also some of the chameleon glitters and regular glitter. It's so pretty, and the dyes really do help make the resin come to life. It looks good against white and black. So this is one of the best ones I made in the bunch, I think. It's set properly, it's nice and clear, and there's quite a lot of interest in it with the blue and the glitter. The next one is the 3-layered pyramid, and this turned out really awesome as well. I love this. See, I did improve as I went along. I had blue dye up the top, clear in the middle, and then a layer of gold glitter down the bottom. I think the dye and glitter combination works well. And it also pays to put quite a lot of glitter in. The first few times I don't think I put enough in, so I was more generous in this, and it just looks so much nicer. It looks awesome against black too, turning the dye and glitter into a greenish colour. I also made a tiny pyramid off camera with some leftover resin I had. I chucked in some blue and pink glitter, and this is the end result. It's so cute, and I really love how these 2 pyramids look together. I really like this shaped mould. I think it works out well. I have no idea what I'm going to do with these, put them out somewhere on display I guess, but I'll just quickly show them on black so you can see the colour more clearly. They're very pretty. Next up is the wrong side of the mould resin creation, which I'm probably going to use as a paperweight now. The chameleon shows up quite well in this one, but more practice and research is needed with those chameleon flakes, I think, because I still haven't mastered those ones. Anyway, let's see the finished mushroom result with the second attempt I made, and doesn't that look much better? This second pour turned out perfectly, and you can see it's a really cute little bowl. And I'm actually glad I did this in plain resin because it really shows how nice and clear it is once it has cured. And here's the top part of the mushroom, and even though that didn't work out perfectly, this turned out so cute. I really love it. It's such a cute little pot. But I really want to make another lid at some point to see if I can improve it. But even though it's not perfect, I do think this turned out really pretty, and I do like the combination of the red and white together. It's not bad for a first attempt. And now onto my absolute favourite ones, the roses. Both of them turned out really well. This one here is entirely glitter in clear resin, and you could see how the glitter has settled into the petals, which is really fantastic. It's turned out so well and much better than I was actually expecting it to. But I think my favourite of all of them is the red rose. This turned out exactly as I wanted it to, with the red on top of the petals and then clear underneath, with some of that red glitter sparkling through as well. It's beautifully clear and it just set perfectly, so I'm really happy with that. It looks good on black too, as does the glitter, and I'm very happy that at least some of my projects turned out really well. This was such a hard video to make. I'm not very good with resin, but I'm getting better slowly and I did learn a lot from this. Here are all of the pieces that I made today, along with this crystal which didn't work very well because it's still a little bit sticky, and this lovely paperweight which we'll just put over to one side here. The rest of the projects turned out well, and I have to thank Let's Resin for sending me all of these wonderful supplies. I had a good time with them even though it was super difficult. The products themselves are high quality. And thank you all so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. I'd really appreciate a thumbs up, and you might want to click the subscribe button. I've got a couple of other videos to watch up here, and I'll probably try another video making some more stuff later on. I'll see you all again in my next video. Swatch you later. Bye!